What's going on, guys? So in front of me, you were looking at a brand new 2025 Ram 2500 heavy-duty crew cab four-wheel drive limited Longhorn. This is an absolutely loaded truck, loaded with technology, loaded with features, and loaded with a very powerful 6.7-liter Cummins diesel engine. That said, we are parked in front of the Surveyor because we're actually going to be taking this trailer out on a tow with this truck to just see how it performs. And I don't think we're going to have any issue at all towing this relatively small and lightweight Forest River Surveyor Legend travel trailer. Now that said, that's not what this video is about, so that'll be another video. This video is talking about the question I get asked the most on my channel, and that is, how do manufacturers of pickup trucks actually determine what the payload capacity is, and why would a smaller travel trailer like this be ideal for a 3/4 ton pickup truck and maybe not a 1/2 ton? Well, let's talk about that. Hang tight, I'll be right back. So as I've mentioned in multiple videos on this Surveyor Legend, the gross vehicle weight rating on this trailer is 7,545 pounds, making this a relatively heavy trailer when it's fully loaded. The dry weight of the trailer is only 5,383 pounds with a cargo capacity of 2,024 pounds. And some people might ask, why would this 28-foot travel trailer be ideal for a 3/4 ton truck like this? Well, first of all, the reason for some of this is the fact that if you load this trailer up to capacity, again, we're going to be at about 7,500 pounds. Most people know that my recommendation for 3/4 ton towing is a 6,000 to 6,500 pound max GVWR for a 1/2 ton. And then when you get beyond that, a 3/4 ton up truck is really what you should look for. Well, why? Because again, a 3/4 ton truck to most people is more than capable enough for hauling these big fifth wheels, let alone something relatively small in the form of a travel trailer. Well, let's look at the payload capacity numbers that the manufacturer have assigned to this specific truck. So when we look at the door sticker on this truck, you'll see that this Ram 2500 truck, 2025 model with air suspension, fully loaded. I mean, this thing is absolutely loaded to the gills because this is a limited Longhorn edition. But this has a maximum cargo capacity of 1,920 pounds. So there's a lot of folks, when I make content talking about 1/2 ton trucks and what their limitations are, they're like, well, I have a 1/2 ton that has 1,900 pounds worth of cargo capacity. And you may. There are a few out there. That's definitely not the norm. Most 1/2 ton trucks, especially in a luxury crew cab four-wheel drive trim, are going to have between about 1,200 to 1,400 pounds worth of cargo capacity. Some of them getting in the 1,500 to 1,600 pound range. But the vast majority are not going to be near 2,000 pounds. They're going to be far below that. And when you move up to your higher luxury trim diesel trucks, that's really where you're going to see that payload capacity in the 1,900 to 2,100 pound range. Now again, when we look under the back end of this Ram, you can see that it has full air suspension. There's no coil springs back here, there's no leaf springs back here. It is full air ride suspension, which actually gives this truck an incredibly comfortable and smooth ride. And I'm going to quickly address the question that some people might ask. Because this truck has air suspension on the back and a very soft rear end, is this going to be safer for the front A-frame section of a travel trailer if you use this type of truck to haul it? And the answer is absolutely yes. The fact is, because this has a softer rear end, because it has air suspension in place, it is going to transfer far less shock and vibration to the A-frame section of your trailer when you're towing it. Far less than something like a 3500 dually or an F450 or an F350 dually, or even 1-ton trucks with leaf springs, because a lot more of the road shock will transfer from the back receiver to the front of your A-frame on your trailer, thus exposing it to a lot more potential damage over time. And the question most people ask is, how do pickup truck manufacturers like Ram, like Ford, like General Motors actually determine the payload capacity of a truck like this? Now, that involves really a lot of mixing of things, such as the engineering, regulatory compliance, as well as real-world safety testing. So let's break that down a little bit. First, again, at the door, we have to determine what payload capacity actually is. Well, it's the maximum weight a truck can safely carry in the cab and the bed, including passengers, cargo, and aftermarket equipment. And it's calculated based on the gross vehicle weight rating of the vehicle. So basically the truck's weight fully loaded with passengers, cargo, and everything in it, minus the curb weight. So let's say that this has a 10,000 pound GVWR. I don't know exactly what it is, but let's just say it's a 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating. That is the maximum weight this truck should ever weigh, fully loaded with people, cargo in the back, fluids, everything inside of it. And let's say the curb weight of this truck is 8,000 pounds, or in the case of reality, 8,100 pounds. That would leave 1,900 pounds worth of remaining capacity that you can use for everything you load in the truck. So the curb weight of the truck is the weight of the truck with all fluids, including fuel, but no passengers and no cargo and no aftermarket equipment that was added to the truck after it was manufactured. A weight distribution hitch can weigh up to about 120 pounds for some, but in most cases it's going to be about 100 to 110 pounds for most of them. And when you add that to your truck, you've deducted 110 or however much that hitch weighs from the cargo capacity that you have remaining on the truck, which means, let's say it weighs 100 pounds. You have 1,900 pounds worth of cargo capacity. You now have 1,800 pounds worth of cargo capacity remaining. Now let's take the tongue weight of this trailer. Let's say we load this thing up and we calculate having about 800 pounds worth of weight transferring to the back. I think most people have seen the videos where we've actually checked the tongue weight and we're at about 600, 650 pounds not going camping. Whenever we load this thing up with everything that we bring with us, we could easily add an additional 100, 150 pounds. So let's say we're at 800 pounds. So now we have to deduct that as well. So if we take the 100 pounds for the weight distribution hitch plus the 800 pounds of tongue weight that'll transfer to the back of the truck when loaded, we're going to be 900 pounds less in terms of cargo capacity, leaving us 1,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity remaining in this truck. Now, if we don't have a weight distribution hitch and we have a conventional hitch, we actually gain some back because it's not going to weigh as much as a weight distribution hitch. So to get to it, let's say we have a family of 4 loaded in the truck. We have a generator in the back. We have the bicycles. We have camping equipment. We have stuff that we're bringing with us, plus a fully loaded travel trailer. It's pretty safe to say that you would probably be in the area of about 1,500 total pounds worth of stuff, including the tongue weight and the hitch on your truck. Now, that's going to leave us about 400 pounds worth of additional capacity. And this isn't one of those things where you're filling a bottle of water to the very top. You don't want to do that. You want to have that capacity. That's your safety margin. That's your ability to know that your truck is not being overworked, your brakes aren't being overworked, your axle isn't being overtaxed, and you have more than enough capability to be able to handle what you're towing. Now, this doesn't mean that you always need to have that much. A lot of people don't tow very often, and if you don't tow very often, you know, having 100 pounds worth of additional capability or capacity might be okay, but again, the more overkill you have, generally the better. Now, how does this factor into how manufacturers determine ratings? Well, the reality comes down to it when it comes to testing and dynamic loads, things moving. If it's sitting here static and we have everything loaded up, nothing's going to break because nothing's moving. But when you hit the road, you start going over expansion joints, you go over really inconsistent terrain, you go over huge potholes, you're going upgrades, downgrades, you're going through major climate shifts where you have incredibly hot weather in one area, incredibly cold weather in another area, you're hitting bumps, you're going off-roading a little bit, things like that all determine how a manufacturer comes up with the actual rating for a vehicle. Because at no point does a manufacturer ever want to believe that you're going to use a truck in a way that will make the brakes fail, or the axle fail, or the springs fail, or the frame bend. And most cases where that's occurred, it's because something has been overloaded beyond what the manufacturer says you should. So at the end of the day, to kind of wrap this video up, it does absolutely make sense to have a truck that has more capability, more than enough capability, more margin of error for whatever you plan on towing. Because that margin of error could be your brakes holding up, your axle holding up, not causing any type of damage. But also be aware that if you get a truck that is way too overkill for your trailer and it does not have any type of softened suspension in the back or any type of suspension hitch set up to prevent shock from transferring to this section of your trailer, you could very well damage your trailer simply because that shock right here is going to transfer to the A-frame section. In the case of this truck has a very smooth ride and it's relatively soft and it has full air suspension in the back, which means it's going to be very, very unlikely that this type of setup could cause any significant damage to the A-frame up here. Anyways, guys, I sure hope this has been informative and this has provided you some information on why I always believe it's good to have a truck that is a bit overkill for whatever you plan on towing. Living at the threshold is never a good place to be, especially when you're towing. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to understanding if the truck you have has the capability of hauling what you're hauling, and if you have the margin and the safety in place just to ensure you're less likely to experience an issue when you're towing or when you're going over less favorable condition roads. So at the end of the day, can you tow a trailer with a truck that is at its maximum capacities, right? Its maximum towing or payload capacity? And the answer is you probably can. Is it safe? It's probably not. And the reason why it's not safe is because if you're traveling, you just don't know what conditions may express themselves to you and cause you to be in a situation that could be unsafe. Braking, for instance, heavy braking. Maybe 90% of your trips, you never encounter anything crazy. But you want to know that if you're on that one trip and you encounter something crazy, that the truck is going to have no problem dealing with it. And you're not going to be stressed out thinking, man, I really should have gotten a truck that was more capable than what I have. Now, again, I'm not saying to go out and buy a heavier duty truck for those 1 or 2 trips you have a year. If your truck has the capability and you're not exceeding any of its capacities, then you should be fine. But this is where I talk about getting the right truck for the right application, also based on how much you use it, based on how you're going to be using it in the future. And if you ever plan on upgrading, it's always a good idea to plan ahead whenever you are going to be camping or RVing and understand that, you know what, maybe if I have the option to get a truck that has a bit more capacity than the one I'm looking at, it might help me out in the future. And then you're just preparing for that option in the future at that point. Anyways, again, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, drop a comment below, and we will talk to you again very soon.